Welcome to the new JFK Show number 118. Tonight, fellas, I just heard a new interview on Black Op Radio from Joan Mellon, and I just had to call Don. Don listened to it. I actually put together a bunch of MP3 clips here, and it seems like Don's actually making a little headway over there, because for the first time, we've heard Israel come up in the JFK research community. So, Don, you want to talk to us about some of the clips you brought together?
Sure. Yeah.
You mean in the conventional JFK community?
Yeah.
Gary.
Right.
You don't mean in the JFK community. I mean, after all, Michael Collins Piper had this brilliant book, Final Judgment, and others of us have talked about the role of Israel in relation to, it's simply not cracked into, the conventional, the mainstream, the mundane, the pedestrian thought process of Black Op Radio.
Well, yeah, let's make it clear. We have the ultimate shill of all time here. But the thing is, we have brought it up many times that they haven't brought up the subject. And for the first time, she did cover a lot of things now. And of course, Phil Nelson, there was the usual stab at that. So it was a long interview, but I listened to it, and I thought it was worth commenting on. We haven't, done any shill hunting for a while, so I think it'd be fun to do it.
Go for it.
All right. Okay, here we go. First MP3.
Okay, I was just going to say, before we get going,
Yeah.
I just want to do a little housekeeping first before the show gets rolling here. I was reading the comments on our Clinton video from a couple of weeks ago, and somebody on there was like, well, you made it sound like I thought that communism was bad and capitalism was good. When in reality, capitalism is just as, it's every bit as Jewish as communism is. I mean, who do you think funded the Bolshevik Revolution? It was New York, Wall Street, Jew bankers. The difference between communism and capitalism is like a left and a right Twix. It's the same thing.
Well, in theory, in communism, there's no private property, no private ownership of property. In capitalism, obviously, the opposite is the case. In communism, you don't have entrepreneurship where individuals are using money to make money, for example. But of course, capitalism is founded on the idea of interest on money, which some have described compound interest as the greatest evil ever conceived by the mind of man. So there are many other points that could be made to challenge the adequacy of your comparison, Don. I just mentioned this in passing.
Okay, I would just add this, and then we can get going, is that the feature of both systems is a central bank that's run by the usual suspects. And in reality, yeah, there is private property in the United States, but in reality, everything is owned by the central bank.
Oh, we don't want to disrupt the flow.
Yeah.
Gary, is this all about Joan Mellon's presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a couple of clips. We're going to go ahead and listen to them, and then we're going to comment on them. The first one is an outline. It says Lyndon Johnson, Hillary Clinton comparison, and the people behind Johnson, the Jews, are backing Clinton and are fearful of Trump. Is the first.
But Hillary's not taking out Barack Obama to a seat to the presidency, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean, Dr. Fetzer. I'll be honest.
Well, Lyndon took out JFK to become president. Hillary's not taking out Barack Obama to become president.
No.
I'm just pointing out an obvious dissimilarity.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Let's listen to Joan talk about it, and then we'll chime in.
Yeah, here we go.
Now, quite a while ago, I heard nothing but bad things about Lyndon Johnson, and lately, I'm hearing this change of people are trying to paint him with a better brush, and he wasn't such a bad guy after all. And when you think about it, he did a lot of good. This is often amusing to me, that how these people get lightened over the years, and
Now, this is true, and what you're saying is absolutely right. The New York Times had a big piece in the News of the Week in Review in which they compared Lyndon Johnson's so-called liberalism with what Hillary Clinton had to offer. And I think that gives us the clue to why the sudden resurrection of Lyndon Johnson. This is done by people who are panicking in fear that Donald Trump will be elected. And they're suggesting not only that Lyndon Johnson's Great Society was real, but that Hillary Clinton will follow in those footsteps. Number one, Johnson was not real, that he had no interest in civil rights and all of that. And two, that neither does Hillary Clinton. But it's a form of I don't know how to say, gaining Hillary Clinton's election. And Johnson's being used in that capacity.
All right. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, no, I think Joan actually makes some pretty good points here. What she's pointing out is that, kind of the same power center that brought Lyndon Johnson is also now bringing in Hillary Clinton. And they are scared of Trump. And I was listening to David Duke's show the other day, and Kevin McDonald was pointing out that 95% of the Jewish political contributions are going to the Democrat Party. So I think Joan actually makes some pretty good points there.
Yeah, for the first time ever.
Yeah. This was actually a pretty good interview for her. I guess I was somewhat taken aback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. All right, anybody else want to comment on that? About her comparing Johnson?
It seems to me very strange to be comparing Hillary Clinton with Lyndon Johnson, who was a master politician, was, of course, corrupt to the core. Now, there Hillary and Johnson bear comparison, but who, was a master manipulator, which Hillary is not. I find the comparison strange, but I'm willing to entertain it for the sake of whatever.
Well, I think it's valid in that it's the same power structure behind both of them. As far as like on a personal level, I don't think Hillary Clinton's anywhere near Lyndon's category of being an operator. I mean, Johnson was part of the Texas political scene for a long time, whereas Hillary was first lady and then a senator and then secretary of state. I mean, those were all positions, she got largely filled.
And Hillary has abused virtually every position she's ever occupied, brought about great catastrophe. I mean, with regard to the Clinton Foundation, for example, she turned her role as Secretary of State into a cash cow by taking contributions from foreign countries for favors from the Department of State, such as $75 million from Australia to obtain strong Department of State support for the TPP, which is going to benefit Australia, but will be at the expense of the sovereignty of the United States. Because among its other features, it creates a board of attorneys that have the right to override the laws and statutes of any of the 14 Pacific Rim countries, thereby subsumed up to and including the Constitution of the United States. It's the last block in place for the New World Order, which is corporations ruling the world.
Whew. Man, I just can't imagine that we're in this position where Hillary Clinton could be our president. I just wonder how it could ever happen. All right, Larry, you want to comment before we go into clip number 2?
No, I'm good. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing everything. I think it's my internet connection. Let's see how it goes from here on.
Okay, here we go. Clip number 2.
Then, Glenn, what happened was, I'm talking on the phone. I talked to everyone. Among those to whom I talked, who was very interested in Lyndon Johnson, because he was in the camp that believed that somehow Johnson actually was involved in the Kennedy assassination, Robert Morrow. And Morrow said to me, he did something very valuable for me. He said, what about the USS Liberty? Are you covering that? I never heard of the USS Liberty. If you want, I can talk about that if you want. But and so I started going into that, and with that, I found that Johnson was a murderer. Now others had already said that Johnson was a murderer in relation to covering up the cheating on the Box 48, and is that what it was? No, I can't. Box
13.
Forgive me. It's the election for the Senate in 1948 in the state of Texas, where Johnson cheats and gets to the United States Senate illegally.
Landslide Lyndon.
Landslide Lyndon. But what's the name of the box where it was supposed to? We opened this box and it would reveal that Johnson didn't have the votes that he said he had, and it's a scandal.
No.
It's in Jim Wells County in Texas, where a person named.
You want to comment, Dr. Fetzer?
Well, this is very odd. I mean, she's going off on Johnson. She doesn't even know the basics about the Box 13 scandal, which was stuffed. It was a box that had about 200 names, just what he needed to win the election, that were taken in alphabetical order from the decedents in a cemetery. I mean, that's why it was such a blatant scandal. It's embarrassing to have her on this, not even knowing the basics.
Well, eventually she did remember it was Box 13. And all right, so here she goes on Lyndon Johnson.
George Pratt helped Lyndon Johnson to get they put people in the roles that were in the cemetery, people that were out of town, people that never registered to vote, and they managed to get enough votes for Lyndon Johnson to gain access to the U.S. Senate. It was in Duval County. Johnson ran against someone named Coke Stevenson. And Coke Stevenson, it was in Jim Wells County. Coke Stevenson was the governor of the state of Texas at the time that Mac Wallace was at the University of Texas. And so he figured in the story, as I wrote it, long before Johnson beat him illegally for the U.S. Senate. But in any case, everybody knows about this. So I know it's just Box 13. Sorry about that. Box 13. Johnson finally got a crony, I think it was Abe Fortas, went to the United States Supreme Court, and they managed to find one justice who was willing to put Johnson's name on the ballot. If you're not on the ballot, you can't be elected. And so he got elected illegally. There's no question about that. And many people noticed that in Texas long before Robert Caro did. And Box 13, isn't that amazing? It fell right out of my mind. Anyway, that's the thing is actually that if Johnson had not done that, and he had not been successful in that 1948 election, I show in the book some new material on how that was done, we wouldn't have had President Lyndon Johnson. And we wouldn't have had the Vietnam War, certainly to the extent that we had it. Yeah.
And of course, Malcolm Mac Wallace was Lyndon's personal hitman, murdered at least a dozen people for him, including one of his own sisters.
She goes into that too. That's coming up. So.
Yeah, let me find. Uh-oh. I messed up. Hang on. Let's see, where did my Joan Mellon thing go? There we go. All right, we're going to go on to clip number 3. I think we lost Larry. So hopefully
he's rebooting his router 2 minutes. So.
Okay. Yeah. Here we go.
There's Johnson, 4 a.m. on the day after the assassination, with the whole so-called Great Society already outlined, and all of his cronies and people who had Faustian bargains with him were standing around his bed, such as Walter Jenkins, who was his right-hand man, and how Johnson was ready to be president. He had everything organized and ready to go. What he was going to do, how he was going to tell everyone that he was only following President Kennedy's policies and putting them into practice and so forth. And he had no self-consciousness about the fact that didn't anyone wonder how come he was so ready to be president, like hours after the assassination? That now I can't prove that Johnson was involved or even that he had foreknowledge of it, although my instinct is he must have, by that very scene of him having all the policies laid out, he must have had foreknowledge of the Kennedy assassination.
He must have had foreknowledge of the Kennedy assassination there. What year are we in? 2016?
Well, for Joan now, this is a big leap. I mean, this is a big step forward for Joan.
Just amazing. Dr. Fetzer, are you
Karen,
okay?
I don't know what to say. You know, this is original amateur hour as far as I'm concerned. Count me Unimpressed.
Unimpressed so far? Okay. Well, we'll see what happens with.
Jim, you're gonna really love the clips coming up here, I think.
All right, here we go. Clip number 4.
And I decided I'm going to redo the investigation of that fingerprint. And I had the Austin prints, because Mac Wallace had committed a murder of a person named John Douglas Kinzer, a golf professional, and who was having an affair with Lyndon Johnson's sister. And he was arrested and tried for this, and the Austin police had his prints. Those prints were smudged. The reason they were smudged is not through any perfidy, but the fact that they didn't bother to clean off the roller from the previous suspect when they took Mac Wallace's prints. So there's a smudge there. But since time had elapsed and the military records of Mac Wallace were now available, a certain number of years had to go by, they went by, and the records which are in the National Archives in St. Louis, the military file was available. Yes. And what should be in that military file? The Navy fingerprints, because Mac Wallace had joined the U.S. Marines in 1939, and they took his prints. The Navy took his prints. So we have 2 sets. Then we have the print that was at the National Archives, unidentified little left finger. Now, I called up Martha Wagner Murphy. In those days, she was working the floor, so to speak, and she sent me a photograph. And I hired a forensic print examiner, who looked at that photograph that the FBI had taken, and he was astounded. It was perfect. There couldn't be a better photograph on earth. Clear, many shades of gray, marvelous. Now we have 3 sets. So he was going to look and compare number 1, Austin, number 2, Navy, and number 3, Warren Commission. Are these the same person? Jay Harrison had hired some people, you'll see it in the book, and they said it was. They didn't have the Navy, they only had the Austin and the unidentified Warren Commission print. I hired an officer of the certifying organization that certified latent print examiners. He wasn't only just an examiner himself, but he was an officer in the organization. What could be better? He had no interest in the Kennedy assassination, and you'd accept the mildest interest of somebody like a man in the street. He just looked at the prints. Now, since those days, when in the 1990s, when Jay Harrison did this, the methodology had changed. We now have more complex computers, and we have digital investigation, not just old-fashioned investigation. So the computer went to work, and it showed that the prints from the Navy and Austin were the same person, but not either of them from the unidentified print that was in the Warren exhibits. What should I do? First of all, I thought I was very happy, because that's a discovery. But, so I rush over and I call the publisher and I tell him, and he's very unhappy, because the book is less interesting, isn't it? If Mac Wallace's print was not on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, because the print had to be made within days of these, very close to the time of the assassination, because these prints, which were on cartons, and it was on a book carton, fade. So it had to be close to the time. And he was so unhappy, very unhappy. But it was true. What are you going to do at a case like that? You have to go with the truth, no matter what it is, no matter where it goes. So that's all I have to say right now.
Hold on.
So when Walt Brown claimed that they were a match, he was wrong. If what Joan Mellon is claiming here, then Walt Brown was mistaken in claiming there was a match?
Yeah, it looks to me that she didn't watch The Men Who Killed Kennedy, because they'd already done that. So she was saying that she came across a new fingerprint from Mac Wallace, and she was all excited because she was going to be able to place Mac Wallace in the Texas School Book Depository and all that. But in the end, she had to be true, and come to find out it is not Mac Wallace's fingerprint, is what she's saying, is what I got out of it.
Well, did we compare whatever prints she claims to be authentic with those that Walt Brown and others at the time regarded as authentic? Were they the same?
Apparently, it's a new set of prints from.
Yeah, but Gary, a new set of prints could be a new set of planted prints. I mean, this is an area of specialization of the CIA. You can't assume that just because you got a new discovery that it's therefore authentic.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Talk to us, Don.
Well, she is gone. I've heard her on Black Op now for, many years, actually. But, I mean, she's been on this Mac Wallace fingerprint thing for, hard for the last 2-3 years. She's really making sure that, I mean, she goes out of her way. Well, we got some clips coming up where she talks about, Mac Wallace was in California. He wasn't in Texas. He took his kid, Disneyland or Disney World for his birthday, the Saturday after the assassination. And he just wasn't in Dallas, and he wasn't really LBJ's hitman. And
really?
Yes. Yeah, I figured those.
So she's doing some house cleaning to try to exonerate Lyndon from any involvement, and even Mac Wallace as well.
Well, now it's kind of a mixed bag, because in the first couple of clips she talks about how Lyndon was prepared on day one to be president. He had this whole agenda ready to roll. So he
had quite a few years to plan it.
No kidding. Yeah.
He said it's possible that he may have had foreknowledge. It may happen. Is what I got.
That's absolutely unbelievable that she doesn't know more about this. Has she never read the work of Phil Nelson, for God's sake, or Madeline Duncan Brown, or Billy Saul Estes, or Barr McClellan, or The Confession of E. Howard Hunt, or, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so what could be the motivation for this Lyndon Johnson cleaning house? I believe there's probably a foundation of money that they probably give out to people that do this.
Listen, when David Talbot published The Devil's Chessboard, it essentially blamed the assassination on Alan Dulles. I smelled a rat. This is ignoring the vast amount of evidence implicating Lyndon Johnson, evidence of many different kinds, many different sources. This is, in my opinion, an extension of that effort to revise the revision of history in which we have pinned the tail on the right donkey.
Yeah, Phil Nelson's talked about that a lot, how, in fact, when I was in Washington for the first and last time, there was all kinds of Lyndon Johnson exhibits, museums, plays, movies, everything for Lyndon Johnson. So he's a real hero in Washington, D.C.
Well, when you consider who's the biggest lobbying group in that town, it's really not a big shock that you're going to get Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, big. Hey, Larry, are you connected with us?
Yeah, I'm connected. I don't have much to say except that I just heard part of what Joan Mellon was saying, and one thing that I agree is what she's saying about the digital era and computers, and the role that they are starting to play in finding out the truth about, especially the man in the doorway.
Yeah, I thought about you when you said that. So, all right, here we go. We're gonna go to clip number 5.
It was, and not only that, about that party, since you bring it up in Madeline Brown, and
the volume, Larry, Gary.
Over and over again. At one time, she had Mac Wallace at the party, and another time she had Hoover. And then Jay and Walt Brown, they looked into it and they said, hey, Hoover got to his office the first thing in the morning. And if you ever have tried to get to Texas and visited Texas by airplane, you will find it's very hard. You can't get there from there. Last weekend, I happened to be in Brownsville, Texas. Whoa! To get from Terminal C to Terminal A at the Houston airport to go to the local flights is at least an hour and a half. You have to take a train. And it's unbelievable. So that is unlikely. Well, George Rufus Brown she had, and sometimes she left out these people. So when Jay Harrison had a lot of notebooks and comments, and one of his own, because he's interested now in all of this, and one of the comments that he made was, if there was a party, at the party, if there was a party. So he's raising some issues, skepticism, about whether there even was a party, or as you say, Len, that party? Was it another party? And we have no corroboration of what Johnson supposedly went to the back room and said after tomorrow the Kennedys won't trouble me anymore or something to this effect. Magdalene Brown, in her memoir, it's called Texas in the Morning, lies too. She says that she went to the Dallas Gun Club every day and she saw Mac Wallace practicing shooting there. Now, Mac Wallace at the time was living in California. How could he have been shooting in the Dallas Gun Club? And furthermore, what was she doing there all day? If she was supposedly working for an advertising firm, isn't she at her job? What is she doing hanging out at the gun club? Nothing makes any sense in her book. And then she took up with Billy Solestes. And the two of them would go like a dog and pony show. And they would go from place to place and various radio programs, films, videos, and she'd be corroborating him and so forth. So neither of these are reliable.
Well, I'll tell you something. Somebody's unreliable. Somebody's lying, and it is not Madeline Duncan Brown. I had over 100 conversations with Madeline. I met her. I interviewed her at the Lancer. I think it was 1999, if I'm not mistaken. You can still get it from Lancer. What she's saying is complete rubbish. Madeline was as authentic and genuine as the day is long. And for her to be trashing Madeline tells me without any doubt whatsoever, to the highest degree of certainty, that this is an op, this is phony, this is trashing a totally reliable source for no good reason. Madeline told me herself about how she'd go to the gun club, and Mac Wallace was there. This was 2 weeks before the assassination, and he never missed. He was a terrific shot. This Joan Mellon has totally discredited herself in my eyes.
Joan's trying to get. She's trying to say that Wallace was in California then. There's no way he could be at Dallas shooting.
Look, the CIA specializes in creating documents to show people aren't where they were when they committed a certain crime. They do that all the time. This is why they have their agents keep diaries, so they can know where they actually were, so they can fabricate documents to show they were somewhere else. I mean, Joan Mellon is totally irresponsible here. In my opinion, this is absolute trash, complete trash coming from Joan Mellon.
Well, I figured this clip would get Jim a little riled up.
Yeah, this isn't a long ago clip. This is just a couple of weeks ago. So
September 8th. Yeah, it was recorded September.
It's really something how far Black Operator. I mean, you can have Larry's work, groundbreaking, one week in and week out, and you go over there and this is like the groundbreaking stuff. It's almost like sad.
I mean, this is what they think is groundbreaking as to what is in fact really groundbreaking.
Yeah, this is her coming out party. She's come up with new stuff, and Johnson may have been involved. May have known.
This is ridiculous. This is a total waste. Glenn Osanik has really sunk to a new low. If Glenn Osanik does know better than to put her on with this kind of rubbish, he really is out of it.
Yeah.
And plus, all the evidence that I had accumulated in New Orleans about CIA's footprints in the Kennedy assassination eliminate Johnson, because Johnson had nothing to do with it. He knew none of those people. He was not in New Orleans. All that evidence is beyond Lyndon Johnson. So how does that fit with Lyndon Johnson being, quote unquote, the mastermind of the Kennedy assassination? Because these people say that the Kennedy assassination was an example of Texas justice and that it was done by Texans. This is sad. I heard that. I said, well, what about all the New Orleans material?
This is just horrific. Absolutely trash. Garbage.
Okay.
This woman has discredited herself dozens of times here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. My main point is, the reason I wanted to play this clip, this is probably the one, these next two are the ones I really wanted to address the most. Okay, CIA footprints in New Orleans. Okay, Gary and I have done the Perm Index shows, and I'm working on some new stuff with another person, and we'll have that out shortly. It's going to be really Perm Index Part 3 and 4. Okay, when you get to the guts of Perm Index, this is international trade, international banking. These are the people that run the planet. This is who was really behind the JFK assassination. And my whole point all along is that Lyndon was part of that machinery. He was more the visible part of the international Jewish finance class, the Rockefeller. And yes, David Rockefeller's name, I'll just drop that little hint, does come up in the JFK context.
Well, George Michael Ivica, who is a program chairman at Lancer, who invited me to organize the first JFK first symposium there on Zapruder film authenticity, long concluded that Rockefeller was behind the assassination. That was his principal thesis. And he was involved, I wouldn't have any doubt, as among the sponsors, for example, the Eastern establishment surrounding the Fed, since Jack had instructed the Department of Treasury to print hundreds of millions of United States notes and was putting the Fed out of business. So Rockefeller would have been very offended by that. But Lyndon was the key guy, forced himself on the ticket in Los Angeles, manipulated the situation, even sent his chief executive assistant, Cliff Carter, down to Dallas to make sure all the arrangements were in place for the assassination. Joan Mellon is a totally incredible source here and is clearly performing an operation of disinformation.
Yeah, well, as Bill Belichick says, either you don't know or you don't care. And, you can't put as much time in this as she has and not know. So draw your own conclusion.
Well, today, and now that you're talking about Lyndon and his influence in Texas and in the assassination, indirectly, Ralph St. Kay found a big, huge piece of the puzzle today. He identified this fella who is not Jack Ruby, and who we've been kicking around during the past day.
We'll get to that in a.
Yeah, we're going to do that as our next story.
Oh, okay.
Just hold off on that. Go ahead and finish this.
Is this clip? Did we play clip 6 yet?
Yeah, we played 6. Yeah, we're on 7 now.
All right, here we go.
This is all excruciating to me. Let's get through it.
Okay, that was a good segue then.
This is really your best part, though. This is the USS Liberty stuff.
This
It's
is
actually pretty good.
Those who don't know, and I didn't know, I'd never heard of it until Robert Morrow told me about it, mentioned it. He didn't actually tell me, just said, go look up the USS.
All right, we're going to start it over real quick.
And then also the USS Liberty. USS Liberty, for those who don't know, and I didn't know, I'd never heard of it until Robert Morrow told me about it, mentioned it. He didn't actually tell me, just said, go look up the USS Liberty. This was during the 6-Day War in June of 1967. The USS Liberty was a ship that was set suddenly out of the blue to be sitting 13 miles off the coast of Egypt. And they were not armed. They had a few machine guns on there, nothing else. They could not hit anyone, they couldn't defend anyone, and nothing. And so they're sitting there in international waters.
It was like an NSA listening ship. It was
Correct, exactly.
intercept communications.
Exactly, intercepts. They would report back then, send this to they didn't even translate because they had no Hebrew translators on there. They would send it back to the NSA in Washington to be translated. So they're sitting there, and what do you think? They're attacked by jet planes with rockets, cannon, and with their own machine guns, with napalm, because napalm was used quite often then in Vietnam. So they had some. Israel had. I know I'm getting away who it was. Israel did the attack on the USS Liberty and admitted it. But before that happened,
to the best of my knowledge, they have never admitted it. To the best of my knowledge. Oh well, it was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake. That's right. They didn't realize it was flying an American flag. Even though we have communication between the pilot and their control saying it's flying an American flag.
I'm sorry, I stopped it. Go ahead, Dr. Fetzer.
Gary, I'm just talking about some of the facts we know about the attack on the USS Liberty. The pilots even communicated back to their control that the ship was flying the American flag, and they were directed to attack it anyway. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
Here we go.
How were they going to sink? And then they had torpedoes. They had 5 torpedoes they shot at the ship. And if one torpedo hits the boiler, it goes down. That's the end. They wanted to kill everyone on the ship, and the ship goes down, and then they can blame Egypt. Then they can get rid of NASA, because that was one of the obsessions at the time of the U.S. government. NASA was, and especially Israel also, two together. It was a collaboration between the United States government and Israel. So anyway, the ship does not go down. They send out an SOS. They had one cable, and they set it up, and they sent it to the Sixth Fleet, which was about 500 miles away. As soon as the SOS went, the captains, these are like captains out of Joseph Conrad's novels, sea captains, and they immediately say, oh, and they're going to send rescue planes immediately over there and try to help the Liberty. Absolutely. So one captain, Captain Tully of the USS Saratoga, launches. The other ship was the USS America. And that's another story. I'll save that story because I'm writing a book now about the USS Liberty. But anyway, the planes go off, and suddenly they have to report to McNamara. That's when they launch planes, they have to call McNamara as the Secretary of Defense at the time to tell him. He gets back on the line with them and he says, call back those planes. Now the captain thinks, well, maybe he thinks I had nuclear weapons in those planes, so he then sends another group of planes that is not configured for nuclear. And then he calls McNamara again. McNamara calls back and says, I said, call back those planes. So the admiral who's now in the discourse with McNamara, named Admiral Lawrence Geist, says, I'm not listening to you. He said, you're not even an elected official, just a Secretary of Defense. And at that point, Lyndon Johnson grabs the telephone out of McNamara's hands and says, I said, send back those planes. I don't care if the ship sinks. I won't embarrass an ally. Now, at that time, you see, the planes, when Israel attacked the ship, the planes were blacked over. There was no evidence who it was. You didn't know who was attacking you. So,
did I hear her say that the reason Lyndon Johnson wanted to go ahead and let the ship sink is so they didn't shame?
That's what Lyndon didn't say that. No, that was Lyndon's quote. Is that he didn't want to embarrass an ally. We're not going to embarrass our friends in the Middle East.
Our friend who's attacking our own ships and putting our military men at the bottom of the sea. That's a real ally there, isn't it?
I couldn't believe that I heard that.
Now he's saying he knows an ally. He knows who it was. And so the planes didn't go. Now the ship still didn't sink, and it was listing at 9 degrees. It stays afloat in the night, and the next morning, the aircraft carriers, the USS America and the USS Saratoga, along with destroyers, along with others, come to the side of Liberty, and with helicopters, they take the wounded, the dying and the wounded off, because the USS America had a hospital on the ship. Liberty had nothing. It had one doctor for 294 people, one doctor. They were bleeding and dying, and 34 people were murdered. So now what they had to do, and what we've had for the last 50 years ago, in 2017, they had to make sure no one talked. And that's this big story about this, the cover-up. How the cover-up, every president since Johnson has covered this up. The sailors, the survivors of the event, would be asking congressmen and senators, please do an investigation. This is silly. We who know about the Kennedy assassination and know what government investigations are like, and how much they lie, and how much they distort, and how much they have scapegoats and pretexts. We're not going to trust a government investigation, but these are U.S. sailors. They are military men. They didn't know what their government was. They knew not to go to Vietnam, because many of them joined the Navy not to go to Vietnam. But they didn't know. I mean, what? And to this day, it's difficult for many of them to accept that the U.S. could have had a role in this attack.
Well, it's a real good example of a false flag.
Exactly.
And this was over hours. This wasn't like a quick 6-minute.
Don.
There are excellent books about the Liberty. What in God's name could Joan Mellon possibly contribute? It's beyond me. This is ridiculous.
I mean,
she's a neophyte. She knows nothing about it. She never even heard of it before. That's a gross display of her ignorance. She thinks she's an expert on so much she doesn't know anything about anything.
yeah, but think of all the show prep material she's going to have for us.
Now, Don, I forgot just how rough this was. So we might have to maybe stay away from shill busting.
Well, I mean, we have to do a little.
I think exposing her is a very valuable exercise. I probably published 30 articles exposing different groups in JFK for working the other side of the street. I published all of that over the years. To have her on to expose her is commendable. That's what we should be doing.
Okay, yeah, but and my last point on it would be, Len let it slip out there at the end. When they talked about the Israeli planes, being painted just all black or whatever. Hey, this is a false flag. So there's this kind of this half-truth movement that talks about false flags, but it's always like the United States that's carrying out these false flags, when in reality, it's.
Well, Israel is the foremost practitioner of false flags in the world, Don.
Yeah. So now a little bit of truth did slip out on Black Op Radio, and and I was talking to Gary. Okay, I'm on Black Op Radio now, so if you go to the archives, the 2016 archives online. And I was talking to Gary the other day. Okay, if I hit Control F on there now, find. And if you type in Israel, you do get one match.
You do? First time ever, huh? Have you trying that for 10 years now? All right. So I think Don's pressuring, and they probably have fans that watch us and call him up and say, look, y'all got to do something about this.
We have 20 minutes left for a 1 hour show, so we may want to turn to a more valuable and instructive research endeavor. It's
kind of fun.
Joan Mellon has clearly demonstrated she has nothing to offer, period.
Absolutely. All right, fellas, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it, but I've kind of always known that during Oswald being shot, that there's a man that throws a black bag over the supposed Jack Ruby. So Larry and Rouse and Kay today have uncovered a picture that they believe is the garage shooter, and we're delving into the idea that it was not Jack Ruby that actually.
Gary, if they threw a bag over the alleged shooter, how this guy gets in the ambulance? He doesn't have a bag over his head. That would suggest these are two different people.
And this was all Ralph Finke who discovered this, Gary. I just made a couple of comments.
Oh, okay. So what do you think? Is everything matching up so far? I mean, it looks like the guy has a big, thick neck. That's for sure.
Well, I have to say that Ralph has created quite a convincing case here for this guy, obviously not being Jack Ruby, but a lot of physical markers and characteristics and the attire. I think, what do you think, Jim?
Well, I would like to see more of how he wants to constitute the case, because we do have the shooter from the back. He is wearing a fedora. It does have a wide band. Right. He does have a certain physical resemblance to Jack Ruby, this guy, and the shooter, that guy, both have a certain resemblance to Jack Ruby. He gets in the ambulance with Jim Lavelle to transport Oswald to Parkland, and that could have been an occasion to finish him off. The fact that he actually survived to Parkland and was then under the treatment of Charles Crenshaw suggests that maybe he wasn't out there to kill Oswald because he had ample opportunity in the ambulance to have finished him off. Princess Diana survived the crash in Paris. On a 1 to 10 scale, she was like a 1. She was barely injured. She was perfectly coherent. They put her in an ambulance. They sedated her 500 yards from the hospital and beat her within an inch of her life, so that when she was delivered to the hospital, she died shortly thereafter. That was the demise of Princess Diana, a disgraceful story.
All right, so I have a question. So this is the man that was in the limousine when they were bringing Oswald to the hospiel?
Yeah.
The ambulance.
Part of Ralph's scenario is that he got into the back of the ambulance with Jim Lavelle, who was the detective with a white hat and all that, who was handcuffed to Oswald when he was shot. I mean, we have the obvious setup of Oswald. They change his clothes. They put him in a dark sweater. So when he's shot, you can't actually see where he was shot. You can't see the blood pattern. That was clearly all deliberate. They got him handcuffed between two detectives to make it impossible for him to avoid being shot. And then you got the person stepping out, who we all have assumed was Jack Ruby. He shoots him in the left side. The bullet does a great deal of damage to the internal organs. We all know it was an unusually savage round in terms of the amount of damage it does. Chuck Crenshaw is responsible for his treatment in trauma room number 2. They didn't want to put him in trauma room number 1, where JFK's morbid body had been brought. While he's treating Oswald, he gets a phone call from none other than Lyndon Johnson. The operator at the hospital tells him, you have a phone call here from the President of the United States. He's bewildered. He picks it up, and there's LBJ talking to him, telling him he wants a deathbed confession. At that point, Lee had taken a turn for the better, and Chuck explained to LBJ that he thought he was going to recover and there wasn't going to be a deathbed confession. And Lyndon told him there'd be a man in a trench coat there when he returned to the trauma room, and the man to take the deathbed confession. And indeed, he said there was this very big, sinister-looking guy whom we believed to have been David Sanchez Morales, but Oswald took a turn for the worse and died, so there was no deathbed confession. But it seems to me if this guy was out to kill Lee, that he had an ample opportunity in the ambulance, which he did not take.
I also wanted to add that in all the images and photographs of the garage scene with Oswald and everything, you never see a speck of blood there anywhere.
Well, yeah, that's true. See, now this is all worth pursuing. Gary, before we go to Jim Garrison, don't we have more photographs from the shooting of Lee? And
I can get the video up right quick.
Yeah, put it up.
Okay.
I mean, now, what motivated Ralph? He has long suspected it wasn't Jack Ruby.
Well, not only that, he's been doing a lot of forensic photographic work on the man who shoots Jack Ruby, and a couple of months ago, he determined that it was not Jack Ruby, and that there had been a lot of doctoring of the photographs showing, him.
How did he determine it was not Jack Ruby?
Well, he started doing a lot of work on him shooting, and the revolver and the position of the hands and everything, and then from there he discovered this man with the fedora hat and that being exactly the same hat.
Okay, here we go. Well, this is before, obviously, because he hasn't been put into the black sweater yet.
Yeah. Here we go.
This is the night before the Friday night.
Yeah. Let me crank the volume up. Okay, here we go.
Here in this shirt. This is Friday night.
Well, I was questioned by judge. During that very short and sweet hearing, I really don't know what the situation is about. Nobody has told me anything except that I'm accused of murdering the thief. I know nothing more than that, and I do request someone to come forward to give me a legal assistance.
He's still wearing his shirt, you notice.
Yeah, good observation there, Dr. Fetzer.
Nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question. You have to find that spot. Sir? You have to find that spot. Okay. So, what is you doing right there?
A police officer brought the rifle out. On May, the press was told. Reporters were asking questions, newspaper photographers were hustling for better angles, television cameramen were feeding pictures, and one interested bystander was just looking on that Friday night. His name, Jack Ruby.
Okay, look at the back of his hair here. Now, this is very important.
Right.
Yeah.
All jagged.
And thin.
Gary, go back just a couple seconds so we can see the back of his head, given the new importance.
Yeah.
Look at
That is.
that.
Yeah, he's bald.
Yeah, but he's going to have a hat on. The point is, you want to look at that fringe of his hair across the bottom.
That's right. That's
Looks a little rough, a little bit uneven, right?
right. That's,
The other guy was clean cut.
Well, that's what we're going to look at. Right.
Here we go.
Go ahead and run it now.
That Friday night. His name, Jack Ruby.
And he doesn't have the big neck either.
He's got a pretty normal looking neck, it seems to me.
Okay, Gary, just pause it for just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, now, what's worth paying attention to here now, everybody's going to watch Oswald grabbing his stomach. Now, once the melee ensues, watch everybody's feet. It's like they're doing a Texas two-step down here in the basement. It seems kind of choreographed to me, so keep an eye on that as we go here.
And they rush him into that room immediately, and everyone was covering him, but you really couldn't see who it was.
Basement floor of the Dallas City Hall, and that's a couple.
Go back where we see the back of the head.
Okay. Right there, a little bit before that.
Yeah, a little bit before that.
There. A lot more hair.
Look at the
See to me,
look
that
at the
guy
body,
looks,
the build, and so forth. It's generally like that of Jack Ruby, but
the guy looks younger though. The more pictures you look, this was kind of not. This isn't the classic.
Right.
He looks more muscular to me.
Yeah.
Much more muscular.
then Jack Ruby, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that a lot of they were noting today, and I've seen this a long time ago. I saw this, noticed this a long time ago. Was Will Fritz? How there's absolutely no reaction to him going off.
He knows it's coming. You're absolutely right. Fritz obviously complicit in this whole assassination of the assassin.
You ever saw
up in the basement, with a noise that should have reverberated, there's no reaction whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah,
He's pretending he has no idea what's going on, to the extent that even when it's going on, with all the commotion, the sound and disruption, he still is unaware, blissfully unaware.
I know. If you watch him, he dances like a ballerina. Keep your eye on Fritz. He's going to do the ballerina move. Here we go.
He reacts to coming towards him.
You saw that?
He doesn't react to the gun. He reacts to the crowd coming towards him.
And of course, the horn has to be the key.
Right.
The time to shoot him, right?
Yes, that was the cue.
Yeah, he's making a little distance between him and Oswald, too.
Right. He doesn't want that bullet to come anywhere near him.
Right, let's watch him one more time do the old ballerina move.
Sir, two horns. One is a longer than a shorter. It's like the longer is, okay, get ready now, and then the short one, do it.
Okay, and then Gary, I want to see it play through now in the melee. Let's see the melee. Let's see the melee afterwards here.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I want to hear the horns.
This is the basement floor of the Dallas City Hall, and that's a couple on the basement floor. It's been
All right, that's the end of that one.
Have you got another clip?
Sure.
Yeah.
Where's that's kind of from a different angle than what we normally see.
Yeah.
I want to see the bag.
Yeah, I got to get where I can move this. Sometimes, 1 second.
Anything that happened there in the Dallas Police Department, traced all the way back to LBJ, how can anybody, ignore that?
All right, here's, I'm not sure if it's the same angle or not.
It looks like it is. Yeah.
Go ahead, play it. A different angle.
Yeah. This is kind of the more.
See that second horn? He steps right out on cue after the second horn, the short one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here we go.
And then.
Yeah, then we should get the back of his head right there, Gary.
Yeah, you had a good shot there.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good angle here. And look at
Right there. Yeah, right there.
Back hole, capture it when there. No.
Just hit play and pause it. That's
okay. I just miss it. I get it.
Don't get cute. Just let it play and there. Yep.
I think right before that, you could actually see it better.
Yeah.
Right there.
Looks nice and straight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this does not look to me like the same as we saw on Ruby on Friday night.
But he has thicker hair, too. It's darker and thicker, and he's a bigger guy.
And it's cut straight. Yeah. Jack's hair looks like some stripper cut it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this is pretty damn good if we're all figured this out. I mean, that's fairly astonishing.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? We have 5 minutes, Gary, so we can keep talking about this. I want to get everyone's take on it. Larry.
I just want to congratulate Ralph for continuing, to work on this, because today it just astonished a lot of people, especially, all the new information that he brought out, and it's I think it's something that's going to be studied for a while now. I think which just
Gary, don't.
This confirms also that a lot more, all of the available footage, film footage is tainted, has been altered in one way or another.
Gary, but maybe we should let this roll through.
Let it play through.
It's 53 seconds, so we can go ahead and start it over. Here we go.
See, now he's got changed into the sweater, notice. Change him into the sweater. Get ready. He's coming out.
Second horn.
We didn't hear the second horn, or I didn't hear it.
See, look at this melee. See, it's
where's the black bag thing? I never.
Watching the YouTube clip over the meeting software's a little. I'm gonna pull it up on my own machine here.
All right, look at 40 seconds. Watch them close the door so no one can see in.
See, that's exactly it. Yeah, see, it's all choreographed as the scrum moves to the door.
Watch, there's the door right there.
Yep.
Wait. Okay, here we go. Watch him close the door. There it is.
Oswald has been shot.
Well, that reporter was right on it, huh?
Yeah.
Right away, he seemed like he wasn't all that freaked out.
Yeah, no hysteria, no shock,
Yeah.
no astonishment.
It seems like it was very well rehearsed.
Yes, I'll bet it was rehearsed. I'll bet it actually was rehearsed.
Yeah, I mean those emails from Ralph where he's breaking down how they dance around and then they immediately get to that door and then now we're on a public view.
Try that one, Gary. Oh, we already watched that one.
Well, this is a short one. I don't know if it'll be different
Okay.
to you.
Okay, right.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
He's not the same.
Excellent panic.
Yeah, that was pretty much the same one.
There's one right above it that's a little longer.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's the one. I think we've seen them all.
And that last one, that 13-second one there, you can see the uniform. You can see the uniform cop shoving the scrum over the door.
Remastered.
This one, look, there's a good shot of the back of his head right there.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
It sure is. You want to put?
What about the ear? We ought to compare the ear. See how much of his ear is visible there?
Right.
We ought to be able to get an ear comparison. Remember, they're as definitive as fingerprints.
That's right. Overlays.
So it looks like Ralph is on to something, and we believe there are other tests that can be applied to confirm it.
All right. There's a screenshot right there.
It was clever of him to even be pondering this.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's been working on it for a couple of months.
What's David Von Payne got there? Lee Oswald's been shot with a. Oh, that's just.
Well, I'll tell you what. Von Payne just plays the network clip. That's it. So,
that was 7 minutes. You want it? Is it too long?
Footage.
Von Payne, that's probably a good clip because he just.
No. Let me tell you something about these clips that he's got up there because he has all the CBS, ABC, and NBC, and using that, we were able to trace exactly when the auction's photographs first came out on television.
Wonderful.
Valuable and invaluable tool because it shows blow by blow, what the networks were showing that day.
So it is efforts to conceal the truth. He's revealing truths.
Exactly.
So it's a 7 minute clip. You want to watch a little of it?
Well, we've hit an hour. We've hit an hour right now.
All right. Okay, fellas. I think we should continue this. This part's been a lot of fun, though. The beginning of the show is a little excruciating, as you say.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of our.
Painful. I don't believe I'll ever watch this particular show.
Well, yeah, I had to listen to that thing like twice. So.
Oh, God, Don, you got a gold star.
We're going to go ahead and admit this may not be, but we're going to watch it to find out, but it just may not be our greatest show of all time.
I don't know. I think we made some interesting points.
I think the second half was good, but
well, I think going through what she had to say was a valuable exercise to expose a fraud.
And we've said many times that Israel does not come up, so it seems like they're feeling a little heat from somewhere, maybe not.
Yeah, I guess maybe they're taking a different tack. She did admit a couple things now that you never heard out of her before. So it's incremental.
Yeah.
Man, how long do you have to wait to find out something new over there?
She never even heard of the USS Liberty, Gary. I mean, think about it.
And
Phil's writing a book on the.
I know. I mean, there are other books out there. I think they're even doing a movie about it.
And I was going to also comment there. What could you tell us about LBJ that Phil hasn't told us already?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, I know. Phil Nelson. Yeah, absolutely. Gary, you want to close it out?
Yeah, it's time to close it out there, fellas. Good show. I appreciate y'all being here and doing our job in the JFK community. Larry, Don, Jim, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next week. JFK Show. I think it's 119.
Hey, I know a guy that wrote an article on the USS Liberty back in 2013.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. All right, fellas. We'll see you next week.